WildTalkRadio.com.
Theme song!
This is the Firefly Funhouse, and I want to introduce you to some very special friends that I've met along the way.
Hey, this is Adam Copeland, a.k.a. the Rated R Superstar.
Hey guys, this is Renee Paquette.
This is Kane from WWE.
This is WWE Superstar Drew McIntyre.
Hello, this is WWE Hall of Famer, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Hi, this is Bree, and this is Nikki, and we're the Battle Twins.
This is Christopher Daniels, and what I like to do on my off days is listen to The Rack, and now you are too.
And it is awesome.
Satisfaction is guaranteed.
It's time to experience the award-winning The Rack.
Goodness gracious, great balls of fire!
I love kickball.
I'm back, taking souls and digging holes.
I'm gonna break you, bitch, you hear me?
You can look, but you can't touch.
Ruthless aggression.
With your host,
They've been lying to you. Heroes don't exist. Y'all become addicted to the illusion of what a hero does for you. Have I mentioned that I was once addicted to eating sponges?
Lindsey Ward.
Look at me, woman.
And you can just call me Taker.
Oh my God, it's Taker, 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 Taker. Does Taker hate me? Oh my God, it's Taker.
And she was a wicked, wicked child who spat and swore and chewed tobacco.
I like puppets.
Stickers!
And her producer, Sir Rockin.
My little creatures of the night will now experience the magical art of puppetry.
If you smell what the game is playing.
Live on the Wild Talk Radio Network.
We're here. Yowie wowie!
Style and grace, I'm never gonna be done. Lean on in. Now welcome to the queendom. The queendom, where the kings bow down. They relinquish the crown. Y'all gon' hit me now. I just turn that around and make you love me, love me, love me. The queendom, where the kings bow down. They relinquish the crown. Y'all gon' hit me now. I just turn that around and make you love me, love me, love me. Look at that girl there, hips, lips, hair.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to The Rack right here on WildTalkRadio.com, brought to you by our friends over at MBG Films. Check them out, youtube.com/MBG1211. And if you're listening to us over on RackRadioshow.com, WildTalkRadio.com, or directly on Twitch, thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. If you're on Twitch and you happen to have a Prime Gaming sub available, well, you can use it here for free for 30 days. It's still technically September for 4 more days. So if you want to take advantage of it, you can hit the little purple button down the bottom of the screen. You get 25% off if you resubscribe. Or, if you just want to resubscribe the regular way, follow the channel, hang out and chat, listen to the archive, or just subscribe in general. We are happy to have you any way we can get you. I'm your host, Lindsey Ward. Joining me, as always, is the ever-faithful producer / co-host / handyman, Sir Rockin.
We've hit the gift bonus sub portion of September, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, something like that. You tweet us at Wild Talk Radio, at Rack Radio Show, Ellens, we're on WildTalkRadio.com, RackRadioShow.com, or Twitch.tv/Thursday Live. Interact with us live because we're talking things this evening.
Oh, are we talking things? We have news, we have notes, and we are going to be talking all about the Vince McMahon documentary that debuted on Netflix this past week later in the show. I don't know about you, but I have opinions.
I've written some.
Yeah, there's some thoughts.
I wrote some bullet points to talk about. Yep.
Yeah. There's some thoughts on that one. So we're gonna be talking about that later in the show. So let's jump right into the news. Brought to our friends over at MBG Films, youtube.com/MBG1211. And that we're going to just lead off with big congratulations to Mick Foley. He has signed a Legends deal with WWE, so he's back with the company. Congratulations to him.
Seeing as his one last match tour has ended, he needs money from somewhere. So, hey, back in the WWE fold to now get licensing and video games and merch and probably do some appearances for them down the road and just sort of being a representative for the company as a legend. Bang bang.
Ayo, let's go. Get that message from somewhere, you know?
Yep.
Alrighty. I have no transition for this. Maybe he can show up at WrestleMania 41 because tickets do go on sale October 25th. The pre-sale begins on October 23rd.
Yeah, we're gearing up for WrestleMania season soon, so tickets for 41 are getting next month. Probably gonna be really expensive for Vegas.
Yeah. Hopefully they do the travel packages. I think they will.
Yeah, they'll do some travel packages and on-location packages and stuff like that. But they probably should have some deals with hotels on the Strip and stuff. And it's gonna be expensive. Vegas for people it's gonna be an expensive one.
Just call it. Is that Allegiant? Is that Allegiant, right?
Yeah, that's the name of their stadium. Yes.
Or is that LA Stadium? That might be LA Stadium because their stadium is on the Strip, right? It's right there by the airport.
Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. That is Allegiant Stadium.
Okay.
And I think it's on the Strip. It's right adjacent to Las Vegas, so it's right there, right near everything. So yeah, enjoy. I think they're gonna be very, very expensive tickets too. And I thought they were expensive here.
I'm sure they'll be
probably a third high. I think a third higher than that. Just call it a hunch.
Yeah. Yeah. But what will be cool is I'm sure they're going to have like a lot of events and stuff, which will make it even more expensive. But hopefully, like I said, packages. Like hopefully we get packages because everybody loves a good package.
Ayo.
I have no transition for this. I'm in a weird mood, guys. Sorry. But it's been a big week for Pretty Deadly.
They had a weekend.
They had a weekend, man. They did it up big. Kit Wilson and Stevie Turner got married. And then, not to be outdone, Elton Prince and Kelly Kincaid had a baby daughter. Congratulations to them. It's Poppy Faye Howley. I love the name. It's a cute name. So congratulations to everybody.
The timing
involved.
The timing just sort of happened that same weekend. One says they got married, one had a daughter. I mean, it was a pretty awesome weekend for Pretty Deadly. That's
good for them, though. I'm happy for them. Like that's amazing. So let's go, Pretty Deadly. I'm waiting for the musical. Still waiting for the musical. Maybe we'll get it
one day. It's in the works.
It's in the works. They have to get funding or something. Sorry, my parents are sending me a text. Okay, anyway, WWE and Hulu's deal has expired. Raw, SmackDown, and NXT Level Up have been removed from the service, and NXT Level Up moving to Peacock with new episodes after SmackDown.
Yeah, the show will air at 10 after SmackDown on Peacock. So there's no next day rights for Raw and SmackDown at the moment. Everything will be on a 30-day period for right now. I believe once this is all settled up, Raw and SmackDown next day rights go to Netflix. One would, since it's all going to be one is all airing on that platform anyhow internationally, so all of it and Raw here in the States. So all the rights will go there for that. NXT will no longer be on a next day plan either with Peacock. They'll be 30 days because of the move to CW this week. So no next day rights, so make sure your DVRs are lined up and recording everything if you want to watch it. Because there'll be a 30-day clause going forward until the beginning of the new year. So yeah, that's kind of the deal. And apparently NXT is getting a new logo, or color change, I should say, when they move to CW this week.
I will be curious to see that rebrand because NXT 2.0 did not go well, so we'll see. They had to go back and they went back to the black and gold.
From what I hear, they're just getting rid of the gold, and it's gonna be like monochromatic and stuff like that, which might be cool. Black, white, and silver. I mean, that'd be cool.
I mean, I can't complain about that. The logo's already pretty clean, so it's it's not.
It's just more of a color change. From
what I heard. They did a color change before, and everybody hated it. Nobody liked.
They went all colors. They went with every color in the spectrum.
Yes, they went with rainbows.
I know, but now they're going to be. They have an idea, and apparently supposedly looks good. So we'll see.
Well, as long as it looks good, and as long as the internet does not freak, we'll be fine.
Every internet will freak, but they freak about everything.
They do in fact freak about everything because that's what we do here on the internet. So everybody pay attention to that. You can also pay attention to SummerSlam because in 2025 it is headed to MetLife Stadium on August 2nd and 3rd. That is official.
It is official. They had Cardi B dropped the announcement with a video with Bianca Belair.
I mean, I'm happy for Bianca. That's awesome for Bianca. I'm not a Cardi B fan. I'm sorry. I do not enjoy her stuff.
And that's fine, but that's a big deal for them. That's a big reach.
Oh, that's huge.
It's a big mainstream audience reach to have her drop the video of, hey, yeah, they've done a lot together. Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say, hadn't she been like lobbying to work with them and like trying to work with them?
Probably. I think they've done something with Bianca before. But yeah, so I would assume they're going to try to work her into the presentation at some point for next year's SummerSlam. But it's 2 nights, August 2nd and 3rd, right before football season. So they got in there at MetLife.
Squeeze it in. Just squeeze it in.
And it's the marketing is it's New Jersey brought them in, not New York, New Jersey. It used to be, hey, we're headed to MetLife and we're headed to New York from MetLife Stadium. No, it's New Jersey. They're clearly in New Jersey.
Yeah. This is a Jersey thing, not a New York thing.
Yep.
And speaking of football season, I actually think this is really cool. I'm sort of geeking out about this because my inner band geek is like, oh my god! The University of Arkansas at Pine Bluffs Marching Band announced that they will be playing Cody Rhodes' popular theme Kingdom at the Bad Blood Premium Live event next month. That is badass.
You got a video that went viral. They noticed. Cody noticed. They came to a deal like, hey, why don't you play me the ring at Bad Blood in Atlanta? Cool.
Awesome.
That should add to the spectacle. By the way, the video they did the video promo they did on SmackDown with Cody and Roman.
Oh, that was beautiful.
That was fantastic.
I don't know who did the cinematography on that. Man, that thing deserves an award. That was just so well executed.
You want to know
it was great.
So it was led by Jeremy Borash.
Of course it was.
Heyman was there. Heyman had some influence probably with the script and stuff, but it was a lot of Jeremy Borash and Rob V.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, it was more just, it wasn't even the script. It was more just the way that they shot it, the whole setup for it. Although I was sitting there watching it and I was like, they had to have shot this at 2:00 in the morning. That's the only time that area would be that empty that they could get away with it.
Oh, yeah.
That's when they had to do this, was 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Because
100%.
there's no way, because that's right, just for context, Georgia Tech sits in Midtown, downtown Atlanta, and the stadium is right off the connector, literally right off the connector. So, yeah, that area is generally really super packed all the time. So yeah, when they were showing the empty cars rolling down the streets, and I know they can close the streets, but yeah, for that to work, that was done at 3 a.m. It had to have been. It was just no other way.
Yeah, it had to be 1, 2 a.m. to make it work.
But yeah, it was so well done. So congratulations to them on that, and go University of Arkansas. I was thinking, I saw that video for them and I was like, what would be really cool is if a marching band did all wrestling music for a show, because there's some really good themes out there.
There are.
They could do it. Nobody would necessarily know what it was unless you're in the know, but it would be cool. Mm-hmm. So moving on to A of the E of the W's and ROH, MVP has joined AEW, which is, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. We all figured he was going there.
The biggest shock in wrestling, he went to AEW and is bringing Bobby Lashley with him. Shocker. I know. Spoiler, Bobby Lashley's probably going to feud with Swerve, because Swerve is not going to, join up with MVP. So, haha, he's bringing in his Hurt Syndicate.
Is that what they're calling it?
Yes.
The Hurt Syndicate?
Yes, MVP's
They can't call it the business because it's a copyright.
Yep, he had a business card with Hurt Syndicate on it. So
if they can make it work, good for them. I hope it's mega successful for them.
Yep.
AEW pay-per-views will no longer be on Bleacher Report in the United States, and starting from next month's Wrestle Dream, AEW shows will be offered on Triller, YouTube, and pay-per-view.com.
Yep, they're kind of Tony mentioned it. They're kind of sunsetting the Bleacher Report stuff. They had a lot of issues with the Bleacher Report. Every time they ran a pay-per-view, there was always an issue. So they're sunsetting.
That's what I always heard.
So they're sunsetting that and going to do Triller, YouTube, and ppv.com for now until the
deal can be announced.
Until the deal gets announced. A new thing started in January, where they max out every place you can watch it.
And we'll find out soon, I hope. I'm assuming there's an announcement incoming on all of that.
Okay, you would assume. if it's all signed, sealed, and delivered, next week's 5 years of Dynamite,
he's got to make it then, right?
That's the most logical way to do it, because then the next morning, on Thursday morning, you put out the press release. Like, you send it all out to the media. You could probably send it out at night, but you probably send it out in the morning of, hey, here's the deal. That would be the most perfect time to do it. Yeah. If it's done.
Well, the rumor is it's done, but then again, there have been a lot of rumors around it. So, but like Tony went out there last week or week before last and was like, pretty good chance we're staying with WWE, not WWB. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah, it's like everything is there, but they're not. Whether everything is fully like locked, who knows? I assume it is, but everything's probably going through one last bit of legal. Making sure everything's worded right. Like the deal's probably handshaked, and things are starting to be signed, or they're negotiating pay-per-view. I don't know, but they're going to be staying on WBD for the TNT and TBS for a long time. I believe it's 3 years and with an extra year or something like that. That's the rumor. But we'll talk more about it when it's officially announced.
Yeah, which hopefully will be soon.
Because I'm tired of hearing about it without, like, all the interviews are like, hey, we're going to do this and this, and like, here's all the new details. It hasn't been a new detail in 2 weeks. But every headline is the same thing.
So either there is a deal or there isn't a deal.
There's a deal. They're not ready to announce it.
But what if there isn't? Like, just to do that for a second, like, what if there isn't one? Like, what if it all fell through?
Then they screwed up somewhere. But it's all signed. It's been signed it's been agreed upon since the Olympics, I think.
Yeah, I think when he went over to Paris, they sort of like finalized everything,
and then
or at least got it in a good place.
They agreed to everything, and then it's just putting it together.
The lawyers have to do their job and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So, alrighty. But what we can't announce, because somebody has re-signed a deal, is that Saraya is staying with AEW for another few years. So congratulations to her.
Yep. She gets to continue on in AEW.
And speaking of people, making changes, not that Saraya did, but Xia Li made a change. She's joining TNA Wrestling.
Good for her.
My only issue with that is that I think they were using her pictures from WWE, but since they have the partnership, I think they probably got the permission to do it.
They probably
like that, because I just saw that and I was like, wait, those are her WWE press pictures. Please tell me somebody didn't go out on the internet and just steal those for that, because that's a big no-no. You're not supposed to do that.
No, they have actual pictures of her.
Okay.
I'm looking on the TNA website. They're good. They're new pictures.
Okay. All right, cool. Just want to make sure everything's on the up and up. You gotta check. It's, you may want to check, because TNA Wrestling Tonight confirmed that it is rescheduling the pro wrestling shows originally scheduled for what was Friday and Saturday, September 27th and 28th at the Spartanburg Memorial Auditorium due to a hurricane that is preparing to roll through, which is happening right now. It is pouring down rain outside my house. And it's going to impact the entire Southeast because, like it does. TNA instead will hold the shows on Sunday and Monday, the 29th and the 30th at the same building. So please check your tickets if you're planning to go. And also, I believe, check their website because I'm sure they'll have more information.
Yes, stay tuned to TNA Wrestling socials. I think it's at This Is TNA on Twitter. They'll be posting the time of the events, because everything is
just so fucked right now.
It's very much pending on weather.
Yeah, we don't know. Nobody knows anything right now other than that there is a Category 4 storm hitting Florida. I need to know one thing. I need to know where Jim Cantori is. Wherever that man is, we know it's bad. The eyewall just hit, then that's where Jim Cantori is. Wherever that thing just hit, that's where that man is. You see that man come to your town, you leave. Reed is also there. Oh God. Oh Lord. Okay, all right. So we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we are going to be sharing our thoughts and opinions on the Vince McMahon documentary, which was released on Netflix this past week. Because we need to talk about that. So you're listening to The Rocker here on WildTalkRadio.com, and we will be right back.
Yes, when I spit, consider the mess about my past. 6 digits, nothing less. You think of Jackie O, you think of success. Success. I'm all grown up now. Gonna show this world how a woman takes on it.
This just into the CB Radio News Desk. Sources have confirmed that CB Radio will be live Saturday nights at 11:30 p.m. Eastern.
Wasn't this confirmed last year?
Yes.
Then how is this breaking news?
No one said it was breaking news. We here at the CB Radio News Desk are just confirming what has already been confirmed.
To confirm, you are just confirming that CB Radio is live Saturday nights at 11:30 p.m. Eastern.
Confirmed. We would like to remind you. Always trust the source that confirms that CB Radio is live Saturday nights at 11:30 p.m. Eastern.
Confirmed.
Confirmed.
Every Monday night, once Monday Night Raw ends, the Raw Post Show goes live.
You want to hear a story? Give me a hell yeah!
Join Lindsey and Sir Rockin as they give their opinions on what they liked, what they didn't like, and what left them completely confused. It's the Raw Post Show. Monday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern. Live on the Wild Talk Radio Network.
And that's the bottom line. Go Stone Cold Simpson.
Like what you hear? Subscribe to The Rack on Apple Podcasts. Just search for The Rack Radio Show. And while you're there, leave us a review and tell us your thoughts on your favorite show on a Thursday night.
Are you following us on twitch.tv/WTR live? Do you have Amazon Prime? If so, you can link it to your Twitch account and subscribe to our Twitch channel for free with Twitch Prime. It's the easiest way to help support us for free.
Every Sunday night, the evolution continues with Wrestle Talk Radio, giving you all the latest happenings in sports entertainment. With the intern, the producer, the original Tim Stein, and sometimes, a Kate Sheep. It's WTR Sunday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain, only on the Wild Talk Radio Network.
Did you know that you can use support a creator code ROCKNSOCK in the Fortnite item shop? That's our OCKNSOCK in the Fortnite item shop. Hashtag ad because we are a hashtag epic partner.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you are listening to the Rack Radio Show on Wild Talk Radio.
No chance, so that's what you got. Up against a machine too strong. Pretty politicians buying souls for run song puppets. Won't find their place in line. But I am straight go wreck your finger now, boy, cause it's just a matter of time. Cause you've got no chance.
And welcome back to The Rack right here on WildTalkRadio.com, brought to you by our friends over at MBG Films. Check them out, youtube.com/MBG1211. And if you're listening to us over on RackRadioshow.com, WildTalkRadio.com, or directly on Twitch, thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. If you're on Twitch and you happen to have a Prime Gaming sub available, well, you can use it here for free for 30 days. All you have to do is hit the little purple button down the bottom of the screen and you can subscribe for free. It is that simple. You can also subscribe the regular way, follow the channel, hang out and chat, or listen to the archive. We are happy to have you any way we can get you. You have 4 days left on September. We're in the gifted subs portion, I believe. So if you want 25% off on stuff, go click the button. It'll tell you all about it. Because, yeah, reasons. But if not, that's fine too. So, by that theme, which I don't know how many more times we're gonna hear it, we're gonna be talking all about the Vince McMahon documentary, which aired on, or actually I should say it's not past tense. It is currently airing on Netflix if you would like to watch it. It is a 6-part series, and Brock and I have both watched it, and we have opinions and thoughts.
Okay, so at this point in time, this is where you do a legal disclaimer. Hey, go watch it on Netflix, and if you haven't and we're waiting to hear it, stop the show right now, because this is where all the spoilers for the show will be taking place. I'm talking about everything that happened for Mr. McMahon on Netflix, the limited time event, streaming now on Netflix.
I would just say this. If you are curious about watching it, go watch it. It's just, in my opinion, it's very well done. It's very good. As
a pieced together piece of history and as a documentary, it is produced very well. Whether you like the content or not, from top to bottom, they told the story they wanted to tell. Was it the story everyone wanted them to tell? No. And that's kind of the key in all of it. The story they wanted to tell, they told, barring outside factors and whatever Vince wanted out there. Because, as they've said, it's all about what Vince was willing to share. And he didn't always want to share what he wanted to talk about and where they wanted to go. And had to be reminded by Paul Heyman. He said by a bunch of people he had with him. And there was one part of the documentary where Heyman is kind of filling in a gap, and they subtitle it of Heyman telling Vince something. So there was a lot of that.
I will say, just before we get into the nitty gritty, this was a very unique picture of a unique human being. And personally, after watching it, I think my perspective on Vince has changed, but I don't think it's changed for the better. Vince has issues. Vince has a lot of problems. You can tell that in the way that they told the story, and it may not be entirely honest because obviously we didn't get all the footage and they weren't able to complete all the interviews, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit later. But just based on what they showed us and based on what they aired, there was one part, I think it was in the final episode, where Vince was talking about his brain, right? And how he's got 2 supercomputers up in his brain, and one's thinking about the interview and what he's supposed to be doing, and then the other one's thinking about something else. And they asked him what it was, and he's like, well, it's basically about sex.
It was this thing, there was 3, it became 3 parts of his brain, because the sex part was the third, I think.
Yeah. But it was it's one, you are ADHD as fuck, sir. At minimum, you are ADHD as fuck. 2, what is going on inside your head? Because there's some stuff he said in there that you're just you're just insane, aren't you? That's just and we all are we're all insane. But there was just some moments that you sat there and you were like, oh my gosh.
So,
but
there's a couple of things we should mention. There's the story they were trying to tell is the blend, and they kind of were trying to tell it throughout the story of Vince McMahon and Mr. McMahon are all one. And Vince denies it, but other people yeah, he kind of is that. It kind of becomes art imitates life, and kind of everything sort of becomes one and the same over time.
The one thing that I learned based on those interviews and based on that is there is the way that Vince views himself and Vince views the world. And that doesn't line up with what anybody else sees or thinks. Because there were some moments in there where I'm like, do you live in reality? I don't think you do. Because especially when they were doing the Mr. McMahon stuff and they were talking about the Mr. McMahon stuff, and Vince is like, oh, I'm not really like that. I'm that's an exaggeration. And then literally every other person that they interviewed for this, every person was like, yeah, no, that's him. Like Bruce Pritchard was like, I've been on the receiving end of some of those rants in private. When he like gets up in people's faces and he like yells at people and he does all that stuff. He's like, I've been on the other end of those rants. Been there, done that. Like they told a story, and we'll kind of get into it later, about Vince and Shane, where Vince basically told Shane to stab him in the heart.
No, let's talk about it, because we're kind of just sort of giving thoughts, as there's no real direction with it. It's talk about it.
So the one thing that they really kind of like showed was like the relationship breakdown between Shane, Steph, and Vince, and especially kind of you see where the pain points were for both children, but especially Shane, because Shane, you can see his ambition, you can see his drive, you can see that he really wants to succeed, and all of that is coming from the fact that he wants to make his father proud of him. He's chasing that proverbial hug, and really sad,
which Vince always was chasing from his own father.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. Was what was really kind of heartbreaking about this was they talked a lot about Vince's childhood and the fact that he came from an abusive home, both physically and apparently sexually, from both his stepfather and his mother, that his father wasn't a part of his life until he was like 12 or 13 years old, and then his father was never really like affectionate towards him. And so Vince was always trying to do things to chase that proverbial hug and do that proverbial hug, and then everything he's kind of done since has been to escape that past. Like Paul Heyman gave a great quote that I can't remember right now, where he basically said that everything Vince has done since he created the company was to escape that abusive past. And then you turn around and you see Shane and Stephanie, and you see how both of them have been impacted by that past and by Vince's behavior, and the fact that both of them are wanting the same thing that Vince wanted, and Vince is denying them the one thing that he should be giving them. Like it's really kind of a heartbreaking sort of thing when you see that cycle somewhat repeating. Mm-hmm. And it was just very, very sad, especially for Shane, because you could see it less with Stephanie, but you could see it with Shane. Like Shane, I don't even know how to describe in this. Like he was cool, like he was fine, but you could just tell that he was like, yeah, he was raring to go. I actually want to see like all of his footage to see what he said, because I don't know how much he said or how much information he gave. But yeah, he was like, you could see that there is definitely like a rift and a pain point in that family from just everything that's happened.
And as you mentioned, there was that spot about the knife and stabbing him in the heart. If that's the only way you're going to take the seat, take your shot. Which was basically what it was boiled down to. Yeah,
it was like Shane had pitched an idea and Vince had said no, and they had gotten into a really heated argument with each other. And like Vince took a literal knife and like offered it to Shane and told him, stab me in the heart. Do it. If you want it, take it. Like I took it from my father.
Yep, Shane made a power play and it failed. And
that's why
that's why he left the company.
But what was like really sad is it's like, well, if you can't do it, if you're not man enough to stab me in the heart, I'll have to take that into consideration too. And I'm like, what the fuck? Dude, no. You don't say that to your kid. You don't say that to anybody.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of... And that's where it's like, you kind of sit there for a minute and you're like, what kind of person are you that like you would say that to your son? And yeah, Shane was like, he said it himself. It was time to go. So he left. Because I think it wasn't the UFC sale, because he had actually like pitched to buy UFC, which is incredibly ironic.
Which they talked about.
Yeah, and like Vince was like, no, we're not going to buy it. And now here we are, partners with UFC.
Funny how that works.
Funny how that works out. But yeah, there was that kind of stuff. I liked the interviews that they had in it. I thought that all the interviews were good. I will say that like Taker and Austin were very guarded. Ooh. And some of Austin's comments were, yeah.
Taker's comments too.
Yeah.
It's not stuff they said all about fans. It's more their old school nature of concussions and CTE and shit like that that just went ooh.
They got on the topic of redacted Chris Benoit.
Yeah, they talked full on about Benoit.
And kind of what happened and sort of how that all went down. They were very, like, the one thing, like, on the more touchier subjects, they went very light on them. And they gave you the basic information without, like, really delving into them. because they talked about 0-2, which we'll get to in a minute. But like for Benoit, they talked about how like the timeline of that and how that all went down. And then they had Nowinski on to talk about CTE. And then you had like Taker and Austin come on, and Taker was like, I was pissed about the, no more chair shots to the head, but if it's best for business, it's whatever. But like, that's part of our storytelling. And then Austin was like, yeah, I just don't believe in CTE. And like, I guess they tried like, and the whole point of this, I guess, was to make Vince look good because he had backed the CTE stuff. Like he had backed the research for it.
Until he made a quote of when Taker got the concussion in WrestleMania. He doesn't remember it because it was just too traumatic for him.
Yeah. Yeah. That just is like, oh, but they're like, but Taker was like, he was with my wife the whole time, comforting my wife. I'm like, that's great. That's awesome. That's wonderful. I'm happy he did that. You almost probably died. Or at the very least, the way I've always heard the story is that he almost didn't know who he was anymore. Like it was a very near thing that he came back. That's how I've always heard that story told.
Mm-hmm.
That it was like really scary there for a minute. But yeah, I mean, I see what they tried to do with that segment, but the way that they cut that in, and I don't know if that's on the interviews or I don't know if on the producers of how that segment was done, but it's like, yeah, Vince backed the CTE research because he had to, right? Because Nowinski was like coming out and saying, this is why Benoit did it. And because everybody was like, oh, originally it was Benoit was insane, or Benoit, was roided up. Like the original accusation, because I remember the Benoit stuff, was that he was on roid rage.
Yep.
And that was like a consistent thing throughout the documentary, was steroid abuse and steroid problems and drugs and alcohol and that kind of stuff. Because it kind of follows WWE a lot. And so, like, the original story of Benoit was he was out on roid rage, and like Nowinski was like, "Well, steroids don't do that. They don't do that to you." And
and Vince believed that too.
Yeah, and Vince believed that as well. So, like, Benoit's father agreed to allow to have his brain studied by Nowinski's group, and that's where they discovered the CTE problem. And this is how this whole research got started. And Nowinski has since been out doing God's work, in terms of like presenting to the NFL and all the sports organizations and WWE about CTE and about what multiple concussions and brain damage and that kind of thing can do to performers and to athletes over time and how it impacts their brains. And that's why so many corrective steps have been made in an attempt to protect the performers and to protect the athletes from concussions and head injuries, because it's better for them and it's better for everybody, right?
Yeah.
That's why the chair shot in wrestling, or specific moves in wrestling, were, at least in WWE, retired, was because we shouldn't be taking unprotected headshots from a steel chair.
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. A couple of things I want to address. The Benoit stuff, I thought they handled it very well. I thought they told the story the correct way without, because they talked about Vince writing himself off TV, and then all the stuff that happened with Benoit going forward and having to change plans. They dealt with the steroid stuff very well, I think, throughout the entire 6 episodes, because they talked about the steroid trial and Vince McMahon getting the neck surgery right beforehand and walking around in the collar, and they talked a lot about Hogan and his deal with the steroids. Didn't Vince just turn around and said that he believed Benoit just went crazy? And I think, yeah, that's a little bit what happened. But back,
he never like fully acknowledged it was CTE.
Yeah, he acknowledged, Vince acknowledged CTE, not that it happened with Benoit. But no, they addressed the steroids very well. Hogan and the grand jury, they covered well, where Hogan basically like, yeah, I told the grand jury what they wanted, I was going to talk, and he said things and back Vince. So they covered that aspect well. They covered a lot of the stuff with the doctor who was telling it. They covered steroids really well, but which I know was like an accusation of Vince, and they cleared Vince of all the things and whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of this documentary where it's like, hey, this is a story about WWE. More than it's about Vince McMahon. All kind of tied back into Vince by the end, but they were like when you think about it, right? The first couple episodes were Monday Night Wars, people yelling about the 93,000 attendance at WrestleMania and the curtain call. Like, that's just basically like old WWE, old film stuff that we've heard 1,000 times. We learned about the screw job at some point and the punch, which that you had to tell when you're defining the Mr. McMahon character. But like, I don't even know we need to be yelling about attendance figures at WrestleMania 3 debate, because that's just the thing. But they did a good job telling the story, but I felt like, hey, this is just a WWE story. So it was like the first couple episodes were just sort of like,
a history lesson.
A history lesson.
I mean, I will say the first episode where they talked about like his rise to prominence, that was more about Vince and his history and his past. And then like, the second and third episode were more filler.
You kind of wanted more. You wanted more of this Vince story, but he wasn't willing to tell the Vince story.
Yeah, like we mentioned this at the top, but part of the problem was after specific allegations came out, Vince actually canceled his remaining interviews with the documentary makers and refused to speak to them any further. And no other interviews, I think, were conducted outside of maybe Bruce Pritchard. I believe that's the case. After the accusations came out.
Meltzer and Bruce, and Dave Shoemaker and whatever, who were part of the ring from the Ringer, but the two wrestling figures, Meltzer and Bruce, were the only two that had 2024 interviews attached in the final episode. And they did a good job dating everything, like 2021, 2022, whenever when these people were interviewed. So you kind of got and they put up notices at the beginning of every episode. Hey, these were filmed before all the allegations came out. And stuff like that. They had. And whenever they talked about anything legal, because every episode had something legal in it. Man's had a lot of lawsuits. They talked about how it finished, or like when it was settled, or if it was still in court, or whatever. And they never gave like the full outcome, but it's like this was settled out of court, or settled in this year, and They wrapped it off with text. There's a lot of Bischoff stuff, which was interesting. Bischoff trying to take credit for some stuff was funny. There was a lot of ego in this. I mean, yeah. Between Bischoff and Vince, there was so much ego. Let's see. There's the talent being stolen, and then the lawsuits there, and then how it was USA who put it up into the huckster gimmicks and stuff they were airing in promos. My favorite thing about that was when they were interviewing Vince about that. And pretty much everybody said that WCW did to Vince what Vince did to the territories, right? Yes. That, they came in and they took his talent when Vince went into the territories and took their talent. And when they asked Vince about it, Vince was like, no, it's not the same thing. No, I didn't know. It's not the same thing. I sued them for that. Yeah. For stealing my talent, for poaching my talent. It's not the same thing, but it's like, but Vince, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. You went in and you poached people's talent and you ran them out of business. That's what you did, sir. I just watched an episode about it. That's exactly what you did. So it was like, oh dear, oh no. so that was all interesting stuff, but it was a lot of it and Bischoff put over his podcast and everything like that. What was tough was the Owen stuff. I had never seen it. That was my first time ever seeing it. Yeah, it's tough. And like the hardest part of it was like they showed them doing CPR on him in the ring. Yep. And it was like, oh my god. Yeah, that was tough. Hate reliving that stuff, but it sucks. And you see where they showed a lot of the close-up footage of the ring and everything, and yep, that was the thing they talked about being an accident and all that stuff, and yeah, it was hard. It was hard to watch. Talked about Brett leaving. They also talked about Brett leaving and the punch and that whole ego trip with the screw job, which every story of Vince has to deal with the screw job and stuff. But yeah, the Owen stuff was really tough. I think what was interesting about that like chapter of it was just like the whole perspective on what I would term regrets. And like they talked to like Stephanie and Hunter and Vince about like that time period, like it was specific to the Attitude Era and like kind of the period after, and like talking about, all the wild shit that they did and all the crazy storylines and stuff with like Owen
everything like that. Basically, all the questionable stuff that was done during the Attitude Era. And it was nice to see like Hunter and Stephanie, and I think some of the others be like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. Like, I'm not sure how we got away with that.
The time period was what it was. That's kind of...
Yeah. And they were very specific to say it is a product of its time and that we would never be able to do that today. Because I think Vince, like in terms of the Owen stuff, they did, like Vince acknowledged that had he fallen in front of the crowd, like with the lights up, they would have stopped the show. They would have had to have stopped the show. But like his justification was that nobody saw him fall because the lights were down.
And they came to see a show, even though that's such a bullshit answer. But they came to see a show.
And here's the thing. I respect that perspective because from a entertainment point of view, the show must go on. But especially for the performers that had to go on after that and be put in that position where, because I think it was like Brett said it or somebody else said it, that it's like you just watched your buddy die, right? Like, or your buddy just died in that ring.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go on after that. Nobody wants to perform after that. And you can see it that like everybody was having a very difficult time. Because like I said, that's the first time I've ever seen that. I have never seen that show or seen that incident. I've only ever heard about it. And so like it's in today's world, that show would have been stopped immediately.
Yeah, we're in a different time period. Yep.
Yeah, but it's like as a product of its time, I can't say whether it was right or wrong. Personally, I think the show should have been stopped. Like just from a mental health perspective, because it's like, because the other thing they said was they never told the live crowd he had died.
Yeah, that's why the show had to go. That was Vince's justification for they didn't see it. They didn't tell him.
They didn't know.
They didn't know.
But they told everybody at home, and it's like, well, but that's completely fucked up. Because the lights were up, everybody saw you doing CPR on him. So everybody knew something was wrong. Like, the show should have been stopped.
Anyway, a couple other things I want to talk about from it. They talked a lot about people coming back. They talked about Hogan coming back. They talked about Sable coming back. And they talked about Shane coming back and how that we talked about how that played out. We learned a lot about Stephanie's opinion on things and heard a lot from Linda as well throughout. Learned Linda gave her side of the Vince and Shane feud they did for WrestleMania. Trish was involved. They broke down the Trish thing, and Trish openly spoke about, yeah, I was okay with what the segment was, the barking like the dog. We knew what we were doing. So, like, that was good to hear. And then we got the whole Vince approving of Triple H and Stephanie and the relationship and the wedding and the pay-per-view wedding. And how Vince then booked the street fight right before the wedding because she said no to a pay-per-view wedding. And like, yep.
Which is, again, insane. Like, just insane. This is your daughter's wedding. Like, and it ties back to, I think, something that Heyman said, that Vince's first love and Vince's true, like, basically wife is the business.
Yeah.
Like, the business comes before everything.
He doesn't care about Steph's opinion, Shane's opinion, Linda's opinion, Hunter's opinion, anyone's opinion, his own opinion. He doesn't care. He cares about making the wrestling or sports entertainment. He cares about WWE. That was his life. And they go with a quote, I don't see myself ever retiring. And then they talk about all the lawsuits and the retirement and him coming back and working his way back in. And the one thing I learned or thought about, how does Bruce still have a job?
I was questioning that. I was seriously questioning that. I'm like, why are you still employed, sir? How? Because you knew. We all know you knew, but yet you are still there. So who do you have stuff on that you were still there? My favorite part about that whole thing was they were talking to like everybody, because I think what was a little telling was the first part of that was they asked about Vince's legacy.
Yeah.
And what would be Vince's legacy. And everybody that got interviewed, at least that they showed, none of them had an answer. None of them could come up with an answer. We're talking about like Taker, Trish, Cena, Hogan, Austin was in there. Like none of them would come up for an answer. And then like Tony Atlas was, I love Tony Atlas in this. I thought he was hilarious. Was the only one that had an answer. And then when they asked about the retirement, everybody was like, yeah, no, Vince will McIntyre. Then Tony Atlas was like, it would take like a nuclear bomb. And then they transitioned to the Janelle Grant stuff. And it was like, oh, shit.
Okay, so I don't want to
spend... It's like, well done.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and because they didn't, and I really don't feel like talking about it. I can see why her camp would be mad they didn't cover enough, and they didn't tell her side of the story. I get this. I understand all this. But they probably didn't have a chance to. They also asked her to be involved, and they never came to an agreement to have her interviewed. They never figured it out. Because guess what? This has been in production for a long time. It was done. This was basically complete until till like the final 20 minutes of this thing, because they added new footage of Meltzer and Pritchard talked about watching the first few episodes of this and how he did not like how Vince was portrayed, and then the 2 days later, all the bombshells came out. But about Janelle Grant. So there was that. They probably didn't have time to add her part in. Could they have spent longer on it? No, I don't think they could have, because we don't. They're not going. You can't read everything that's involved in the lawsuit like that on a documentary like this. You can't. That's for another.
They did cover a lot of it, though.
They did, but they didn't cover all the grossness of it.
No, they did not. They did get some of it in there, though.
They did. They talked about the sex toys and stuff. But you can't harp on it, because that's not what this is. This is not a legal story of the law. This is not the lawsuit of Janelle Grant versus Vince McMahon story. That's not what this is. The fact that they talked about it a little bit was good enough for me to cover it. Like, hey, this is part of his history. This is a story. Talk about it. End it. Because you bookend it from beginning to end. That's all you really needed to do. You didn't need to go any deeper, because you don't have the experts to legally break down what's in it. But I could see why people would want more of it. They just don't have the resources for that.
I think the way they handled it was very well done, because they scratched the surface of it, and it could be that when this was put together, we didn't I think the lawsuit had just been filed, or very, very shortly thereafter, and we didn't have all the information, and like you said, they didn't have the experts, and that's not really what this was about. But it was sort of the capstone, or a really good capstone, to what has been a life in terms of lawsuits and legal issues and that kind of thing. Because the one thing that they were very sort of blatant about was all the lawsuits, especially the rape trial, or the rape lawsuits, and the sexual stuff, and how many times Vince has been accused of sexual harassment or rape or sexual assault or anything like that. They did not shy away from that at all. And they talked about it multiple times.
Which is why Bruce was saying it was a hit piece, because they told the negative stories, which you have to tell. This is what you're trying to piece together.
I mean,
they covered it, and that's all you.
They covered it from what I feel like was a very objective point of view. They didn't condemn Vince at all for what he had done or what he had been accused of doing. They just said he was accused of doing this to so-and-so, and this is what happened, and this was the result. They talked about Ashley Mazzaro and the issues that happened with her and how that was covered up. They mentioned that Vince was involved, but there was never any throughout this whole thing, there was never any condemnation from the producers in terms of Vince's behavior. They just put Vince's behavior out there, and then it's up to the viewer to decide if this is good or bad. Now, you had some of the people that were being interviewed that were I forget his name, but it was the reporter that was Vince is a dirtbag.
Phil Mushnick.
And they Phil Mushnick, where they were talking about that, and when the sexual assault lawsuits for the the New York Times reporters and that kind of thing, that they were this is bad, this is wrong, but you never had the producers saying it was bad or wrong. For me, it was objective,
which is what it should be. Because if they condemned it, then it's a biased story. If they leave it open-ended, it's you. They're giving you all the pieces to judge.
But from Pritchard's comments, it's well, what did you think they were going to do? Did you think that they were going to kiss Vince's ass? and like basically say, oh, he's the greatest thing ever. Like, no, you can't say that about him, because it's like he's done. And Pritchard brought up that it's like you didn't mention anything about the good, right? And then Pritchard told the story about how Vince helped save his wife's life, which is amazing, right? It's wonderful. And that is true. They didn't talk a lot about Vince's charitable contributions or anything that he's done to really sort of help people. Like they said that, well, yeah, he's sort of like a father figure to everybody except his own son. But he's like a father figure to everybody, and how everybody, you know, respects him and looks up to him, and in some cases loves him. And in Taker's case, he would take a bullet for him. Which, okay, sir. But like, you can't just sit there and praise Vince and ignore all the bad that he's done.
Yeah.
Even before the Janelle Grant stuff. Like, before that ever happened, like, there's, you know, 70 something years out there, you know, just especially in the last like 4 decades of stuff that like is out there in terms of his behavior.
And I'll say this about the good of Vince McMahon. It's up to Vince to tell, hey, I did this, or people to come forward with the good stuff like Bruce talked about. It's up to the people to like tell that. A lot of the things Vince did privately, he did privately to help people. He didn't want to make it public to begin with.
And I get the sense that a lot of that wasn't like told or given.
Right. It's not. If it was, it would probably been included somewhat.
But I mean, it's just it's interesting how they did it from that perspective. But like going back to Pritchard's comments, it's like Vince. They opened it with Vince telling them, like, I'm going to give you some good stories and I'm going to give you enough, but I'm not necessarily going to give you the real me. Yeah,
and they asked him right away for a good story. He's like, nope. Jimmy Hart was like, so give me examples, and they're like, I don't know what I can say. They're all trying to protect the boys protecting the boys.
Yeah, they were very, very, very tight-lipped in the beginning.
Yeah.
And throughout, they were, I think the most open was Hogan and Atlas. I think they were the two of the most, like, Atlas was just like, I'll say whatever you want, I don't care. Yeah. I'm good. Like, that was the most candid I think I've ever seen Hogan, but I don't think it painted Hogan in a very good light at all.
No, but Hogan has his faults too.
Hogan has his faults too, yes. And you know, if he doesn't come off well, he doesn't come off well. But yeah, like I said, it was a very human portrayal of Vince, and he's a very complicated individual, and I think they showed that very well. But I can completely see why he doesn't like it, because I think because it's that human portrayal and he sort of sees himself, I feel like he sees himself as above that in some ways. Like, he's this great, wonderful, awesome, amazing guy. Like, he's just, because like I said earlier, he almost comes across as like delusional in certain parts of this.
He does. Go on.
Like, he's just not in touch with reality at all.
No, and he's never been at certain points. A couple notes before we wrap up about it. One, they were filming interviews with Vince at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. He'd make them wait around all day.
Which is rude.
Because, you know, he's doing business and whatever, and then and then he would roll up, get back in the suit he was in for all the appearances, and sit in that metal chair and talk about it. And he had to be reminded a bunch of things, and overall, a good watch, an interesting watch. Learned some stuff, but it was a lot of, if you watched the WWE story before, you knew 75% of it before.
Yeah. I mean, some of it was a little shocking. Like, some of it was like, oh, okay. But for the most part, it wasn't anything really terribly surprising, especially by the end, because they sort of like built up to the end, obviously. And then when they got to like the Janelle Grant stuff, you're like, wow, this is kind of part of a pattern, which is a little scary. I will say I am somewhat concerned for him from a health standpoint. There's something very seriously wrong with him from a health standpoint, because his lips, and I don't know if it's, and I don't want to like accuse anybody of anything or insinuate anything. His lip, especially his bottom lip, it did not look good. And I don't know if that's from filler injections. I don't know if that's because he's having health issues, but like, his lips,
real. It didn't look real.
He didn't look real at all. Like, he looked like what was really sad was at the end. At the very end, they did like the photo collage or slide or like retrospective or whatever you want to call it, of Vince throughout his life. And you could pinpoint the exact moment he got the plastic surgery done. Like he started getting it done. You could pinpoint it.
Yeah, you could.
So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was really good. My impression from Vince has kind of changed. And I think he could benefit from therapy. Like, I think there was a lot there that they told that it's like because you could see it at certain points that there was like certain insecurities, especially about his past, and that he had kind of never really dealt with stuff.
Yeah.
At least in a healthy way. Like, you could see it in his behavior and the way that he was speaking and kind of his attitude on things, that it's like, if you had just like, and again, he is a product of his time, right? And the men of his time, they don't go to therapy. They don't talk to people about their feelings and that kind of stuff. And not to generalize, but like, that's kind of how he presented it, right? Is you just put it behind you and you move forward. And it's like, I feel like if you had dealt with this stuff in a more healthy way, things might be different, but I don't know. But there were just points of this where it's like, wow, just wow. It was a little terrifying. I'm not going to lie. I would honestly be curious to see the stuff that didn't make the documentary, just to see if that changes the perspective on it at all. They'll never release it.
No, I don't think it would.
But like, I would actually love to see the interviews with Vince where it's just Vince talking. And it's not the clips that they cut in. And so you get the full context of him. Because obviously some of it was put in there just to like, for shock value and that kind of thing. And it was the best footage or it was the weirdest footage or whatever. Because they like, the one that was like really horrifying was when they were talking about the incestuous storyline with Stephanie and the baby. And they confirmed that was true. It was like, oh my God, Vince, what the fuck? I was like, dude, no. But yeah, overall, I thought it was very good. Worth watching.
Indeed.
So with that, I think we're done.
Tomorrow night, 10 p.m.-ish, right after SmackDown-ish, is GM Battles 2.0 with myself and the intern. Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, is Game Night. Saturday night after that would be CB Live at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. Sunday night, they preview Bad Blood on WTR Sunday Night Wrestle Talk Radio at 10 p.m. Eastern. Monday night, for the last time in 2024 at 11 p.m. Eastern, and then we'll be moving to 10. Or whenever Raw ends. We'll be back next Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, to preview Bad Blood here on The Rack. It's Rack Radio Show on all social media platforms, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search The Rack Radio Show. It's at Wild Talk Radio, Facebook.com/Wild Talk Radio Network. Chat, if you have Amazon Prime, link to your Twitch account. It's called Prime Gaming Support Channel by clicking the purple rectangular button below the screen. You can use code RocketStock or
Lindsey M. Ward
in the Fortnite item shop when you buy your Rubius icon skin, your bye emotes, or Deadpool, Wolverine, and all the other Marvel superheroes and Star Wars and all the things, because we are
#Epic Partners. You can follow me on most of social medias at LindsWard, LNSWD. You can check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/LindsWard. You can follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/LindsWard, or youtube.com/@LindsWard. There we go. Or you can follow me on TikTok at LindsWard. 01. There we go. I'm distracted. I'm sorry. There's football that just completed. The Cowboys won. So Post Malone is a good luck charm for them, maybe. And then, of course, Storm. But yeah, while you're liking and subscribing and doing all the things, you can head over to Matt's channel, MBG Films, youtube.com/MBG1211. Check out his stuff. Tell me he said hi, like, subscribe, do all the things there. And just enjoy. So for Rock, I'm Lindsey Ward. You've been listening to Rock right here on WildTalkRadio.com, and we will see you later. Bye.
Bet this match rookies. My stock's on top, your checks bounce while mine boogie. Wrist, I must rock it. Chicks, stop it, I knock it. Cash looks like I got a gang of fists in my pockets. Fist in my pockets. Fist in my pockets. Here comes the money.
WildTalkRadio.com.